Today I'm going to be bringing you 7 tips for photographing your first wedding. Maybe you have second shot for other photographers or been an assistant before, and this is now your first opportunity to photograph as the primary. Or maybe you have not done a wedding before and you're coming in completely fresh. Either way, weddings are super exciting. I have been a wedding photographer for over 7 years, and I thought it could be fun to just bring together some of my best tips for success in your first weddings. So this list could really go on and on. It was hard to narrow down, but I really wanted to keep it the most important, the easiest to apply, 7 items. So I'm just going to limit myself to those 7. Let's dive in. One thing I have to say before I get into the tips is always use a contract, please. Even if it's friends or family that you're photographing or it's completely unpaid, you should definitely have an agreement in place, and you can always go back, even if this wedding is very soon, and make sure everybody is represented in an agreement. I think you need an agreement when you're a wedding photographer, but you need an agreement when you're in the beginning stages more than ever. So use a contract. I have a video all about what should be in your contract. I'll link that down below. Let's get into the 7 tips. Tip number 1 is bring a backup camera. I'm sure you have a camera or you wouldn't be photographing a wedding, but if you don't have a backup for if that camera breaks or stops working or freezes up or won't turn on, you definitely want to get one. Even if it means borrowing a camera body from another family member or a friend, or you could rent a camera body online. There are a couple of different sites that I trust. borrowlenses.com is one of them. I will link some options for you for renting gear, but I think it's absolutely worth the peace of mind to know that if something were to happen, which things do happen with electronics, that you're covered and that you have a backup camera. I think a subcategory to this is having a backup of a memory card because you might go through more memory than you think, and a backup of a battery. So just think in backups because you can't redo a wedding day. Tip number 2 is bring a friend or family member to help you. As an assistant or just someone to hold your stuff, even having somebody holding the family formal shot list while you are getting everyone together and working through the day and making sure everybody's standing where they should be is so helpful. I can't even tell you. So if it's a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a family member, like whoever, if somebody could just come and help you throughout the day, it is surprisingly a busy, lot of moving parts situation to photograph a wedding, and you will be so happy to have that extra set of hands. Tip number 3 is to discuss the timeline and the expectations with the couple that you're photographing. So even if it's an unpaid situation and it's a family member or a friend and it's a favor, you definitely still want to treat this like you're photographing a wedding, right? And so getting that timeline, even a loose timeline together with the couple before the wedding day is really going to help you to prepare, but also you can get those expectations from your couple as well. So asking them questions like, when is your ceremony? How long will that ceremony last? Will you be seeing each other before the wedding? And who do you want pictures with the most at your wedding? These are questions you should definitely be asking the couple before the wedding day. Now, I'm going to list more questions down below that you could potentially ask. I'm just going to dump a bunch of questions to facilitate that conversation. So this can happen over the phone. It could be a quick 15-minute call. It could be a Zoom video type thing, or it could be in person. So depending on the situation and what you're photographing, I think it is absolutely imperative that you discuss this with the couple before the big day. So down in the description section, you'll find a list of questions that you could potentially ask, things that you might not be thinking now, but would probably be good to know once you're there photographing the wedding day. And so you can find that in the description section. Tip number 4 is plan to show up early. There are a lot of reasons for this. Things are unpredictable, your car, your transportation, traffic, but I think the biggest benefit of being there early is that you get to look around, maybe get some picture scene setting type shots, and you also get to meet everybody who is in the bridal party or that you're going to be photographing. And I think it's a really great way to kind of set the tone for the day, introduce yourself, make sure that you get yourself set up and your equipment's working, and just having that time buffer is going to help alleviate that stress of being a wedding photographer. Tip number 5 is get a shot list of the family formals with names. I think family formals is usually the most chaotic part of a day, and it's often the part that wedding photographers least enjoy, because you're there to photograph love and moments and people dancing and having an amazing time, not necessarily a group of 20 people, but we know that those shots are really important. Now, I actually have a video all about photographing family formals, getting the most out of them, so you can watch that here. I'll also link it down below. But I think the most important thing you can do is have that list ahead of time and include specific names. Because if they say Grandma and Grandpa and Uncle John, that's not super helpful when people want to go grab a beer and just eat hors d'oeuvres and not listen to you. But if you have a specific family formal list that actually includes people's names instead of Grandma or Uncle John or Cousin Sarah, you can actually say Michael Raymond, Caitlin Wyrick, Kelly Downen, can you all please stand up here with the bride and groom? And those people will be like, oh, yep, that's me, because you have their full name. Super helpful. Seriously, you'll thank me later. Tip number 6 is have a plan for both harsh lighting and low light. So the night photography situation. So most weddings span over the course of, 6, 8, 10 hours. And so because of that, you're going to be shooting in lots of different lighting scenarios. And I think the trickiest of these lighting scenarios for a newer wedding photographer is normally night photography. So I would urge you to both have a plan, know what your situation's going to be. Are you going to use a flash? Are you going to use a video light? Are you going to just rely on cranking up your ISO? None of these are right or wrong answers. It's just important to have a plan so that when the lights inevitably get dark or the sun sets and you are there photographing the wedding, that you have a plan for how you're going to approach that low lighting scenario. I also highly recommend that you practice. Turn out all the lights in your house, close all the blinds, put a flash on your camera and start playing around, even using the flash that comes on your camera. It is so much better to have a little bit of an idea of how you're going to approach a scenario, even if the scenario is a little different on the wedding day, than to just be making it up. I promise you, you will be so much happier if you have a bit of a plan for what you're gonna do, if it's harsh lighting or dark lighting. P.S. If you're looking for how to photograph a ceremony without flash, I have that video here. I'll link it down below. And I also have a video about how to photograph the sparkler exit on a wedding day. So if that's happening at the wedding you're photographing, definitely check out that video next. And finally, that brings us to tip number 7, last but not least. This could arguably be the most important thing you do, is to back up your images right away and don't format over the memory cards. I never want you to have to explain to a client why you don't have their wedding images. It is not a fun conversation, and I think that this tip alone could save you from ever having to do that. So back up those images, get them onto a hard drive or 2 or more places, and don't just rely on those hard drives. Keep the memory card until those images have been delivered to your client or couple and they're happy and it's done and you know for sure that they got them. Then you may format over those cards. Storage is cheap. It is one of the best things you can do to ensure that those images don't accidentally get formatted over and you thought they were on a hard drive, but the transfer went wrong or an image corrupted. It's just a nightmare for any photographer, and so I never want you to have to face that. Now, if you want to see my complete backup process of how I back up my images and store them and make sure that they're safe and secure, you can check out this video here. I'll put it somewhere here, and I'll also link it down below, because I have a video dedicated to this process of how I back up my images and make sure that they're safe and that I never lose them. And thankfully, because of this process, I have never had to go to a client and say, hey, something went wrong, I don't have your images. But I imagine it's not fun, and recovering memory cards is expensive and hard, so keep those files until you've delivered them. All right, you've got this. Go photograph that wedding, practice as much as you can, communicate with your couple as much as you can, and ultimately try to have fun, because it really can be a fun event. I'm also going to link a couple of really helpful videos down below for you guys. They're videos that I really think will be helpful if you're photographing family formals for the first time, details for the first time, or low light photography and exits. I also have a couple of videos on flash and off-camera flash. So if you are interested in these things, those videos are going to be a huge, huge help to you. What other tips would you give someone photographing their very first wedding ever? Leave it in the comment section below. I know you guys are going to come up with some amazing tips. I can't wait to read them. If this video was helpful for you and you learned something, please consider subscribing and give me a thumbs up. I make videos just like this one every single week, and I hope to see you next time. Bye, guys.